Hello, my people. Good day to you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whatever time zone you're listening to this, thank you for tuning in every single day to listen to me on Daily Mind Shifts. My name is Michael Ujola for Mindset Transformation Africa, and on today's episode, I want to continue on motivation, habits, and how to leverage both to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. So let me anchor today's episode on this statement. Motivation is a guest. So design your habits so they don't depend on visitors. Motivation is a guest. So I want you to design your habits so they don't depend on visitors. That's what I want us to talk about. Something that quietly controls more outcomes in our life than most of us realize. And that is motivation. That fleeting emotional visitor that feels good when it shows up and leaves you stranded when it doesn't show up. The truth is, motivation is not meant to be permanent resident in our lives. It's a guest. It shows up, it inspires you, it steers your energy, and then it leaves without warning, without explanation. It's gone. The mistake most people make is that we build our life goals and growth around that guest that is called motivation. You can't depend on motivation to show up every day because it is unreliable, it is inconsistent, it is easily distracted. But habits, on the other hand, those quiet, repeated actions, those are the landlords of your future. They decide what your life becomes long after motivation has left the room. So today, I want to talk and walk you through this idea a little bit deeper, because once you understand it, your relationship will your relationship with progress will change forever. Let me ask you this: have you ever had the moment when you wake up full of energy, you're ready to conquer the world, you're motivated? Yeah, you've just watched maybe a powerful video on TikTok, you've just read something inspiring, or you just made a decision that feels like a breakthrough. Then 3 days later, you can barely drag yourself out of bed. The same goal that thrilled you now feels heavy. You're tired, you're distracted, you're unmotivated. And what happens next? Most people interpret that feeling as failure, all right? They assume something is wrong with them. Maybe I'm not disciplined enough. They start thinking, maybe I don't want it badly enough. But I don't think that is the truth. Here's the truth that I want you to take home today. Nothing is wrong with you, all right? Nothing is absolutely wrong with you. You're just waiting for a guest that is not meant to stay. See, motivation was never meant to disturb you. It was meant to start you. It's like the spark that lights the engine, but the engine runs on something else totally. The engine runs on structure, it runs on rhythm, it runs on habits. See, when you expect motivation to carry you through, you build your life on emotional weather, all right? You only work when the sun is shining. You only show up when you feel inspired. You only follow through when it feels convenient. But emotional weather changes, and if you build your life on that, storms will always stop you. That is why your mindset must shift from waiting for motivation to creating a system that works, even when you don't feel like it. Let us strip motivation of its illusion just for a moment. See, motivation is emotional energy triggered by either your desire or your discomfort. You feel motivated when something excites you or when something bothers you enough to want to change. But both of those emotions, both excitement and discomfort, they fade. They are temporary spikes in your psychological chemistry. That is why motivation rises and falls like a heartbeat. It is meant to fluctuate. Think about it. You've probably been highly motivated before to start a fitness plan. You save money or you work on a project. The first few days were filled with enthusiasm. Then, after a week or two, the novelty wore off. You got tired, you got distracted, you got overwhelmed. That is not laziness. It is pure biology. Your brain stops releasing the same surge of dopamine once the activity becomes a routine. That is where most people quit, because they mistook the guest for the structure. You cannot build a house on the promise that a visitor might show up to help you. You build the house with what you have every day, consistently. Whether anyone comes or not, you build. Motivation is a visitor. Habits are home builders. Let me just bring this down to something practical. Every time, for example, that you perform an action repeatedly, your brain begins to automate that particular action. It stops needing emotional permission to do it. That is how habits are formed. The power of habit is not in how exciting it feels, it is in how automatic it becomes. You brush your teeth not because you are motivated, but because it's built into your daily structure. I hope you are not motivated to brush your teeth so that you can brush every day. Now, imagine if your financial discipline, your focus, your prayer life, your study routine, your exercise habits were as automatic as brushing your teeth. That is where freedom comes in. Freedom is not about doing whatever you feel like doing. No. Freedom is about being able to do whatever matters, even when you don't feel like it. And that is where most of us get freedom wrong. Freedom is not about doing whatever you feel like doing. No. Freedom is about being able to do what matters to you, even when you don't feel like it. So, if you want to live freely, stop chasing motivation. Build systems. Build habits that can function in silence, without applause, without mood, without emotion. Because the truth is, the most successful people are not the most motivated. They are the most structured. Let me ask you this. How many great plans have you abandoned because motivation left too soon? Maybe you wanted to write a book. Maybe you wanted to lose weight. Maybe you wanted to gain weight. Maybe you wanted to start a business. Maybe you wanted to get another job. You got started strong. Then the guest left the room. So your commitment left also. The reason is simple. You relied on emotion instead of design. You see, motivation is emotion-based, but discipline is design-based. You cannot feel your way into discipline. You have to build your way into it. That is why people who succeed long-term are not inspired than you. No, they are not more inspired than you. They just stopped waiting for their feelings to catch up before taking action. They do what needs to be done regardless of how they feel. See, a well-designed habit doesn't need a pep talk. It just runs. If you design your morning very well, they will carry your days. If you design your environment in the right way, it will shape your behavior. If you design your habits in the right way, they will shape your destiny. Because motivation fades, but design systems like this, it endures. All right. See, let's talk a little bit about designing your life around habits as I draw this episode to a close. Start with this mindset. The smaller the habit, the more sustainable the progress. See, you don't need to run 5 miles a day. Just start by putting on your running shoes and walking for 5 minutes. You don't need to meditate for an hour. Start with 60 seconds of stillness. You don't need to read 50 pages at once. Read 1 page and close the book. You don't need to save half your income. Save 100 naira consistently. Save $1,000 consistently. See, the brain loves progress, not pressure. When you lower the barrier of action, especially barrier to action, consistency wins. That is how you build momentum, by starting so small that failure has no room to argue. And once a habit sticks, you can expand it. But you never start big, all right? Because big requires motivation. Small runs on simplicity. Your life changes when the small things become automatic. Do you understand me? So, one of the clearest signs of growth, as I draw today's episode to a close, is when you can show up without the emotional rush that once drove you. When you can work, pray, write, or build even on days when you don't feel like it. That is strength. That is growth, and that is maturity. You may not realize this, but predictability is power. All right? When you keep your promises to yourself, no matter how small, you build that trust. You become someone your own mind can depend on, and that is when everything changes. You stop overthinking, you stop waiting, you stop needing motivation, you just move. Let's circle back to our theme today. Motivation is a guest, so design your habits so they don't depend on visitors. Motivation visits, Discipline lives there. Motivation excites you, but